There comes a time in every life when love, the very thing meant to lift us higher, begins to weigh us down. It begins so beautifully. The laughter, the promises, the moments that feel touched by something divine. But slowly, almost quietly, something shifts. The joy fades, the peace disappears, and what once felt like a blessing begins to feel like a battle for your soul. Many walk through that storm and call it love, never realizing they are standing in the shadow of manipulation, confusion, and control. They blame themselves for the pain. They question their own worth, their own sanity, their own heart. But this message today is for those who are tired of being drained by someone who was never truly giving. It's for the souls who still believe that love should heal, not harm. You see, there are signs. Clear, piercing signs that reveal when love is no longer love at all, but control disguised in charm, affection wrapped in deception. These signs are not meant to condemn, but to awaken. Because when truth enters, freedom follows. Today, we will uncover 5 telltale signs that someone is caught in a narcissistic relationship. Not to bring shame, but to bring light. Not to judge, but to set the heart free. For no one deserves to live in chains while calling it love. And once you see the truth, once your eyes open to what's real, no mask can ever blind you again. There's a kind of love that sweeps in like a dream, dazzling you with words that sound like forever and eyes that promise safety. It feels magnetic, almost divine, like the universe finally sent someone who sees every part of you. They say all the right things, touch your soul in all the right places, and make you feel like you finally arrived in the story you were meant to live. But somewhere along the way, that story starts to change. You start to notice the cracks behind the charm, the shift behind the smile. You realize that the one who made you feel seen never truly wanted to see you at all. They only wanted the reflection of their own perfection shining back at them. At first, you think it's you. Maybe you're too sensitive. Maybe you're asking for too much. Maybe love just hurts sometimes. But deep down, something whispers that this isn't love. This is performance. This is illusion. The charm that once felt like light now blinds you. The affection that once lifted you now binds you. You find yourself walking on stage every day, trying to say the right lines, wear the right face, and avoid the wrong reactions, just to keep the peace that never lasts. The mask of charm is powerful because it feeds on what's good in you. It uses your kindness, your empathy, your hope. It turns your desire to love deeply into a weapon against you. A narcissist doesn't fall in love with you. They fall in love with the way you make them feel about themselves. They mirror your dreams, your values, your strength, until you can't tell where you end and they begin. But the moment you stop feeding that illusion, the mask slips and the truth steps forward, cold, calculating, and hungry for control. Yet even in that pain, there is a moment of awakening. The moment you see the act for what it is, you start reclaiming your truth. You begin to understand that your worth was never tied to how well you could please someone else. You were never meant to be an audience in someone's performance. You were meant to live freely, to love without fear, to give without losing yourself. The mask may have fooled your heart for a while, but it cannot silence the voice of your spirit calling you back home. So stand tall in that truth. Don't shrink yourself to fit into someone else's play. Don't apologize for outgrowing the illusion. Because once you see the mask, you no longer belong to the performance. You belong to the light beyond it. And that light will carry you toward the kind of love that doesn't pretend, doesn't perform, and doesn't require you to lose yourself to feel seen. There comes a time when you start to notice that every word you say feels like it's being measured on a scale that never balances. Every step you take feels like it might set off an explosion you can't predict. You begin to live in quiet calculation, trying to keep peace that never truly exists, trying to hold together something that's already falling apart. You tell yourself it's just a bad day, that maybe if you're softer, calmer, more understanding, things will change. But deep down, you know you're walking on eggshells, and no matter how gently you move, they always crack beneath you. That's the trap of a narcissistic relationship. The constant fear of saying the wrong thing, feeling the wrong emotion, asking the wrong question. You start to shrink yourself, to dim your light, to erase the parts of you that once burned bright. You become so focused on keeping them happy that you forget what your own happiness feels like. You wake up one day and realize your laughter doesn't sound the same, your confidence doesn't stand as tall, and your dreams seem quieter, as if they're afraid to speak too loudly in the presence of someone who always needs to be louder. They have a way of turning your emotions against you, making you believe that your reaction is the problem, not their behavior. You start apologizing for things that shouldn't need forgiveness, for simply existing with feelings, needs, and opinions. It's like living in a house built on glass. You can see the cracks forming, but you're too afraid to move, too afraid that one wrong step will shatter everything. That fear doesn't just silence your voice. It steals your identity. You begin to forget that your voice ever had power. But there's something they don't expect. They don't expect you to find your strength again. They don't expect you to remember who you are beneath the fear. Because fear might hold you for a while, but it cannot define you forever. The moment you start to listen to that small, steady whisper inside that says, "This is not what love feels like," that is the moment everything begins to shift. The ground may still be fragile, but your spirit starts to rise above it. You begin to realize that real love doesn't demand your silence. It invites your truth. Real love doesn't punish your feelings. It protects them. So step carefully, but step forward. Every word you reclaim, every truth you speak, every boundary you draw is a step away from fear and a step toward freedom. You were not created to live in constant tension, to question your worth, or to carry the burden of someone else's insecurities. You were created to walk in peace, to speak in truth, and to love without fear. And when you finally take that first full breath again, when you speak your truth without trembling, you'll realize that the ground beneath you was never meant to be eggshells. It was meant to be solid, unshakable. And yours? There's a quiet kind of pain that creeps in when you start losing yourself piece by piece. It doesn't happen all at once. It starts with small compromises, small silences, moments when you choose peace over honesty, just to avoid another argument. You start bending your truth to fit someone else's comfort, shrinking your dreams so they don't feel threatened, dimming your light so they can shine brighter. You think it's love, you think it's sacrifice, but over time you look in the mirror and realize you don't recognize the person staring back at you. You used to have a laugh that filled the room, ideas that sparked conversation, passions that gave your life color. But now, your world feels muted. You hesitate before speaking. You second, guess your thoughts. You seek approval before you breathe. That's what a narcissistic relationship does. It rewrites your identity, one manipulation at a time. They convince you that your emotions are overreactions, that your memories are lies, that your instincts are wrong. And before you know it, you stop trusting yourself. You start living by their narrative instead of your truth. It's like being erased while still existing. You're there physically, but your spirit feels faint. You move through your days, trying to keep balance in a world where only their needs matter. You keep giving and giving, thinking love will eventually be enough to change things. But the more you give, the less of you remains. And when you finally pause to look back, you realize how far you've drifted from the person you once were. The one who dreamed without fear, who spoke without apology, who loved without losing themselves. But the beautiful thing about the human soul is that it never truly disappears. Even buried under layers of pain and confusion, that spark of who you are still flickers. It waits for the moment you decide that you've had enough of pretending. That spark begins to glow the moment you choose to remember yourself, to remember what you love, what you believe, what makes you come alive. It's not easy. Rebuilding never is. But with every boundary you set, with every truth you reclaim, with every moment you say no to control and yes to yourself, that light grows stronger. One day. You'll find yourself laughing again without fear. You'll rediscover your own rhythm, your own beauty, your own strength. You'll realize that losing yourself was never the end of your story. It was the moment your soul began to fight for its return. Because you were never meant to disappear in someone else's shadow. You were meant to stand in your own light, to live in your own truth, to love in a way that doesn't cost you your identity. And when you finally stand tall again, you'll understand that the greatest love story you'll ever live is the one where you remember who you truly are. There's a moment in every toxic relationship where you start to believe that maybe, just maybe, this time things will change. They say the words you've been aching to hear. They promise to do better, to listen more, to love the way they once did when everything felt beautiful. And for a brief moment, hope floods back in. You start to believe that the storm has passed, that the person you fell in love with has finally returned. But deep down, you know that feeling never lasts. The same pattern begins again. The same lies dressed as love, the same charm masking control, the same promises that crumble the moment you trust them. That's the cruel rhythm of a narcissistic relationship. The cycle of false apologies and empty promises is what keeps you tied to the illusion of what could be, instead of facing what is. Their apologies sound convincing because they know the words you long to hear. They study your pain, your softness, your hope, and they use it to keep you hooked. They don't say sorry because they feel remorse. They say sorry because they fear losing control. And when they sense you're slipping away, they reach for the one thing they know still works: your heart. But real change doesn't come with words. Real change comes with action, with consistency, with accountability. A true apology brings healing, not confusion. It brings peace, not more promises that go unkept. In a narcissistic relationship, those apologies aren't meant to heal you. They're meant to reset you, to pull you back into the same cycle you keep trying to escape. One day they break you down, the next they build you up, only to tear you down again. You become addicted to the highs and lows, clinging to the moments of kindness as proof that love still lives there. But it's not love. It's control dressed in affection. Manipulation disguised as forgiveness. You start walking through life, waiting for the next apology, hoping it'll finally mean something. That this time they'll keep their word. But every time you give them another chance, they take another piece of your peace. And that's when you begin to realize that the only person who can break the cycle is you. The moment you stop believing the words and start watching the patterns, the illusion begins to fade. You see the truth for what it is: a web designed to keep you trapped in confusion, guilt, and false hope. The power to break free doesn't come from anger, it comes from clarity. It's the moment you decide that your healing means more than their excuses. It's the day you stop settling for promises and start demanding proof. When you finally stop listening to their words and start trusting your own instincts, everything changes. Because you deserve a love that doesn't require you to forget your pain, just to feel peace. You deserve a love that keeps its word, that protects your heart, that honors your soul. The moment you let go of the apology that never comes, you make room for the peace that finally will. There comes a moment when the fog begins to lift, when the illusion starts to crack, and the spell that once held you begins to lose its power. For so long, you were caught in a cycle that convinced you love was supposed to hurt, that peace was something you had to earn, that your worth depended on how well you could please someone who never intended to be pleased. But deep inside you, something stronger than fear begins to stir. It's that quiet, steady voice that says enough. Enough of the pain, enough of the confusion, enough of the pretending. That's the moment the spell begins to break, you see. Narcissistic relationships thrive on the power they take from you. They feed on your self-doubt, your empathy, your need to fix what you didn't break. They weave a story so convincing that you start to believe you can't survive without them. They make you question your strength, your judgment, even your sanity. But the truth is, the power they hold over you isn't real. It's borrowed. It's energy you've given away without realizing it. And when you start to reclaim it, everything shifts. The same love that once blinded you becomes the lesson that opens your eyes. The same pain that once broke you becomes the fire that refines you. Breaking the spell doesn't happen overnight. It's a process of remembering. Remembering who you were before the manipulation, before the control, before the silence. It's waking up each day and choosing truth over comfort, healing over habit. It's learning that peace doesn't come from fixing others. It comes from freeing yourself. You begin to see that you were never powerless. You were simply convinced to believe you were. And once that illusion fades, their control dissolves with it. You start setting boundaries. Not because you're angry, but because you finally respect yourself enough to protect your peace. You stop explaining your worth to those who never intended to see it. You stop chasing closure from the very person who caused your wounds. And as you walk away from the chaos, you start to feel something you haven't felt in a long time. Stillness. The kind of peace that isn't loud or dramatic, but calm and steady, like the quiet after a storm. It's the peace of knowing you made it through. The peace of realizing that the love you were searching for has been within you all along. Reclaiming your power isn't about revenge. It's about release. It's about walking in truth, standing in confidence, and trusting that everything you lost was preparing you for what you're about to gain. Because the moment you choose yourself, the moment you stop waiting for them to change, you step into the light of your own freedom. And in that light, you will find strength, clarity, and peace so deep that no one can ever take it from you again. The spell is broken, and the power is back where it belongs, with you. When the dust settles and the noise fades, you begin to see that the journey was never about them. It was about you. Every tear, every heartbreak, every moment you doubted your worth was shaping you into someone stronger, wiser, and freer. You learned that love is not supposed to destroy you. It's meant to build you. You discovered that peace is not something others can give. It's something you choose for yourself. The scars remain, but they no longer define you. They remind you of how far you've come. So lift your head high and walk forward with grace. You've reclaimed your power, your voice, and your truth. The spell is broken, the fear is gone, and the light ahead is yours to follow. This is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of the life you were always meant to live.